So can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, let us continue. So we were discussing about axial flow compressors. Previously, we had discussed about centrifugal compressors, and we have discussed that in aviation there are mainly two types of compressors which have been used: centrifugal and axial flow compressors, right? And there are other types of compressors, but we are not studying those because those are not used in aviation. Like for example, they are reciprocating compressors, somewhat like similar to IC engines using piston cylinder type of arrangement for compressing. So those type of compressors do not provide the air at a means continuously. So there are like periods when the air is supplied at high pressure and then periods when it is not supplied, similar to the operation of IC engines. So those type of compressors are not used for continuous operations such as in jet engines. So historically, only centrifugal and axial flow compressors have been used, and these are known as rotodynamic compressors because of the rotational motion involved in both these compressors, and both of them supply the air continuously. So it's like a continuous steady process. Okay. And we have also discussed that centrifugal compressors are nowadays not used because of some of the difficulties which are associated with it, namely that the cross-sectional area is significantly larger for the same intake area, leading to much larger drag. And also for multi-staging, the flow direction is not very suitable. The axial flow compressors are much more suitable for multi-staging. The main drawback of axial flow compressor is that in a single stage, the amount of pressure rise that can occur is much less as compared to centrifugal compressor. Typically, for a centrifugal compressor, you can obtain pressure ratios in a single stage of the order of 4. Okay, so 4 times increase in pressure rise can occur in a single stage. Whereas for axial flow compressors, it is of the order of 1.5. So you need a larger number of axial flow compressors, leading to means it should ideally lead to the increase of length of the engine, but because the flow direction is suitable for axial flow compressor multi-staging, for example, say we can have continuously a line of axial flow compressors because the inlet and exit from each stage is axial. It does not actually lead to too much increase in the length, because in centrifugal compressor, if you want to multi-stage a centrifugal compressor, so multiple stages, you need to move the air from the radial direction again back to axial direction. So some length will be required to just do that. Okay. So as a result, having multiple stages of centrifugal compressor is quite difficult. Sometimes engines have been built like you can see here with say multiple axial compressor stages followed by a single centrifugal compressor stage to keep the length limited. But still this type of designs are also not used. Anyway, so we had already discussed important parts of the axial flow compressor in the previous class. We have seen how it looks like. So typically a single stage will comprise of a rotating part, which is known as the rotor, and a static part, which is known as the stator. Okay. So for example, I hope you can see this or see my mouse cursor. So the rotating part is attached to a hub which is mounted on the shaft. Okay. It's not shown in this diagram, but in here you can see. So it is attached to a hub which is mounted on the shaft, and as a result, it rotates with the same angular velocity of the shaft. And the static blades, so there are blades which are stationary, are mounted on the casing. Okay. And the set of blades for a single stage the static blades for a single stage comprises or constitutes the stator. Okay. So the first row of blade here that you can see is inlet guide vanes. Then we have the first stage consisting of this rotor and stator. Then this is the second stage consisting of this rotor and stator, like this. There are multiple stages. And these also we have discussed. I'm just repeating because we are taking the class after more than one or after 1 week. So just to again get back into the rhythm. So again, you can see here the rotor blades of the axial compressor, and you can also see that how the size changes along the flow direction. The size becomes smaller because the mass flow rate remains constant, and you need less cross-sectional area because of higher density because of higher pressure. So either you can have them at the same hub radius, so that the tip radius is varying, or the hub radius can increase so that the tip radius is constant, or the third way is that both the hub and tip radius changes so that the mean radius remains constant. Okay, so in this case you can see somewhat like that. So you can see that hub radius is increasing, so the hub here has a much smaller diameter as compared to the hub here. So tip radius is also actually slightly lower, and mean radius will be somewhat constant. Okay. So then we were discussing about the work input that is required for a single stage, and to do the calculations for the work input, we had drawn the velocity diagram. So velocity diagram is the diagram which shows us how the velocity changes through the rotor and then through the stator. And the velocity change through the rotor is slightly complicated because we have two sets of velocities, because the rotor blades are still like they are themselves moving. So there is a set of relative velocities in the rotor blade. So if you are sitting on the rotor, or if you look from the reference frame of the rotor, you will see that the flow is moving with a certain velocity. But from a stationary reference frame outside the rotor, you will see that the velocity is different because so the velocity is the cumulative velocity, or add, like if we do the vector addition of the relative velocity and the blade velocity, we get the actual velocity in the absolute frame of reference. So based on this, we had drawn the velocity triangles. What were the velocities? Let us just refresh this or revise this quickly because we have to continue this part today. So at the inlet of the rotor, the absolute angle is alpha 1. Okay. Typically, it is denoted by alpha 1, and the velocity is denoted by C1. Okay. Absolute velocity is denoted by C1. So the angle alpha 1 and C1 is dictated by the inlet guide vane. So angle is dictated by the inlet guide vane. The role of the inlet guide vane is to change the flow direction from the axial direction. Axial direction is in this direction. Okay. Axial is in this direction. This is the axial direction. The flow is coming from the top and going out towards the bottom. So change the flow direction from axial to a certain angle, okay, so that the flow actually enters the rotor blades smoothly without any impact on the blades. So the flow is aligned properly with the rotor blades. So that is maintained by the change in flow direction in the inlet guide vanes. And the flow velocity actually depends on the overall mass flow rate, okay, and the axial velocity. So axial velocity again depends on the design velocity. So if you want to design a axial flow compressor, so what will be the cross-sectional area, typical cross-sectional area the designer considers, and what is the mass flow rate based on that. So mass flow rate and other things are dependent on overall cycle design, not on axial flow compressor design. So mass flow rate will depend on the actual thermodynamic cycle design, which will govern what is the work requirement and thrust required for the entire engine. Okay. So based on that, the CA value is decided, and C1 value will depend on the angle and the CA value. Okay. So after that, because the blade is moving, with velocity u. So entire structure that we are seeing here is assumed to be taken at the mean radius. Okay, mean radius means we are taking it at a height which is somewhere in between the hub and the tip radius. Okay, we are taking it at a height or at a blade height which is at the halfway between the hub and tip. Okay, and we are assuming that the mean radius remains constant. Why we are calculating all the velocities with respect to mean radius? Because otherwise the blade velocity will change. Blade velocity is proportional to the radius at which we are calculating the blade velocity. So we have to assume that all the radius is, like, for all the blades the radius is same, so that blade velocity remains constant. So that constant blade velocity is u. Okay. That also can be calculated. That is equal to 2 pi r into n, where n is the rotational speed in rotations per second. Okay, 2 pi r is the radius and n is the rotational speed in rotations per second. So that gives us the blade velocity u. Okay. So with respect to the rotor blades, the relative velocity at the entry is v1. Okay. So v1 plus u gives us the absolute velocity c1, and the relative angle at the inlet is beta 1. Okay. So this beta 1 is known as the rotor blade inlet angle, or simply the blade inlet angle. Okay. And what happens in the rotor? So the flow direction is changed from beta 1 to beta 2. So the relative velocity direction changes from beta 1 to beta 2. And the flow velocity, relative flow velocity changes from v1 to v2. Okay. So at the exit, the relative velocity is v2 and angle is beta 2. Because the blade itself is moving forward with u velocity, okay, u is the entire length. Okay, u is the entire length, this length. Sorry. So because it is moving forward with u velocity, the absolute velocity is equal to c2 and angle is alpha 2. Okay. So at the end of the rotor. So what happens? So what has happened in the rotor? The relative velocity has decreased, but the absolute velocity has increased. Okay. So this has occurred because we are providing work input to the rotor due to the from the movement of the shaft. So this work is transmitted from the turbine. Okay. As a result, the stagnation temperature increases or stagnation enthalpy increases, and this stagnation enthalpy is stagnation enthalpy rise is done in two parts. One is that it leads to increase in the static enthalpy also. And that occurs, static enthalpy means increase in static temperature. Okay, that occurs because of the diffusion process occurring in the rotor blade itself. What is diffusion process? Diffusion is like flow through a diffuser. So if you increase the cross-sectional area, the pressure increases at the cost of velocity. So for the rotor, you can see that the relative velocity decreases. So the rotors also act like diffusers. Okay. So from the point of view of the rotor, so if you are sitting on the rotor, you will see that the velocity is decreasing. Okay. It means that the pressure is increasing. Okay. So and temperature is increasing. Okay. Static temperature. So the rotors also act like diffusers. They increase the static enthalpy because of the decrease in relative velocity. And in addition to this, they also increase the absolute kinetic energy, okay, because of the and both this energy is obtained from the shaft work. So then in the stator, this extra kinetic energy that was available is again converted back to further increase in enthalpy, static enthalpy. So at the inlet of the stator, we have absolute velocity c2, and the stators are designed in such a way so that at the exit we have the absolute velocity again decrease back to c1. Okay, so we have written this as alpha 3 and c3, but in practice generally c3 is taken equal to c1 and alpha 3 is taken equal to alpha 1. Means the design is done with c3 equal to c1 and alpha 3 equal to alpha 1. So again, the velocity decreases to c1 and the absolute angle becomes equal to alpha 1. And this reduction in kinetic energy manifests as increasing static enthalpy. So there is further increase in static enthalpy. So ultimately, if you see the single stage, the static enthalpy is increased significantly, first in the rotor and then in the stator. And the overall kinetic energy remains same in the entire stage. It has increased and again decreased. But at the inlet, it was equal to half C1 square by half C1 square, and at the exit also of the stator, it is equal to half C1 square. Okay. So the overall kinetic energy at the inlet and exit still remains same, but the static enthalpy has increased significantly, and that has happened because of the supply of work through the shaft. So this we had discussed in detail in the previous class, and this C3 equal to C1 and alpha 3 equal to alpha 1. These are taken through so that we can repeat the same pattern again for the subsequent stages. So for the next stage inlet, again the angle will be alpha 1 and the means absolute angle will be alpha 1 and the absolute velocity will be c1, and the same pattern can be repeated again for the next stage. Same calculations can be repeated again for the next stage. And based on this, we had defined some parameters. First was the flow coefficient. Okay, so based on the velocity triangles, we defined a parameter called flow coefficient, which is equal to the ratio of the axial flow velocity by the blade velocity, Ca by U. And this came out to be equal to either 1 by tan alpha 1 plus tan beta 1 or 1 by tan alpha 2 plus tan beta 2. Okay. Where alpha 1 and alpha 2 you can see, and beta 1 and beta 2 from this diagram you can see. So, and you can easily calculate that basically. So this part Cw1 is equal to Ca tan alpha 1, and similarly the other part, this part is equal to Ca tan beta 1. So if you add that, you get U is equal to Ca tan alpha 1 plus tan beta 1. Similarly for the other case, Ca tan alpha 2 plus tan beta 2. From this we get this flow coefficient values. So this also we have discussed, and then we have discussed what should be the work input in terms of the velocities and angles. So work input is equal to change in angular momentum multiplied by the angular change in angular momentum multiplied by the should be equal to the multiplied by the angular velocity, right? So m dot r into Cw2 minus Cw1 into omega. So that actually gives rise to m dot u Cw2 minus Cw1. So Cw2 is the tangential component of velocity, which is also known as wheel component of velocity at the inlet of the rotor, and Cw1, sorry, and Cw2 is at the exit of the rotor. So because the tangential or wheel component has increased, it means that the stagnation enthalpy or has increased, or work has been provided to the rotor, and there is no work input to the stator because it's a static component. So as a result, the entire work input occurs only on the rotor. So this we had written as m dot u Cw2 minus Cw1, which was written as UCA. So per unit mass fluid, we had written that as U into Ca tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1. Okay, Cw1 can be written as Ca tan alpha 1, and Cw2 can be written as Ca tan alpha 2. Okay, so that is why W is equal to UCA tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1. And again from this expressions, because we know that tan alpha 1 plus tan beta 1 equal to tan alpha 2 plus tan beta 2, we can also write that specific work as UCA tan beta 1 minus tan beta 2. Okay, using these relations. So alpha 2, alpha 1, again repeating what I had discussed. Alpha 2 and alpha 1 are known as flow angles, and beta 2 and beta 1 are known as blade angles. Okay, or rotor blade angles and stator blade angles. So we can write the work input in terms of either the flow angles or the blade angles. So then what we had discussed, so we actually wanted to find out, so what is the ultimate goal of the compressor? Ultimate goal of the compressor is to increase the pressure ratio, right? So we are discussing in terms of enthalpy rise, but ultimately we want to increase the pressure. So, and in the interstage, what we want to find out, what is the increase in pressure? Interstage comprising of the rotor and stator. Okay. So to do that, we have drawn the TS diagram for the actual case. Actual case means that there is entropy rise. So there are frictional losses involved. So what we had done, we saw that the stagnation in enthalpy or the stagnation temperature behaves in this way. So in the rotor, there is a significant rise of stagnation temperature. So we go from 0.1 to 0.2, and this has occurred because we are supplying work to the rotor. Then in the stator, because there is no supply of work or there is no heat transfer, the stagnation enthalpy and stagnation temperature remains same. So 03 T03 is equal to T02. Okay, T01 is the inlet of the rotor, T02 is the exit of the rotor and inlet of the stator, and T03 is the exit of the stator. Okay. What about the static conditions? So at the inlet of the rotor, the absolute velocity is quite small, C1 is quite small. So the kinetic energy is small. So this 0.1 is very near to 0.1. Okay. The difference between T01 and T1, what is it? It is equal to C1 square by 2Cp, right? T01 is equal to T1 plus C1 square by 2Cp from the definition of stagnation temperature. So here this line is, or this distance is quite small. So then in the rotor, we know that the absolute velocity increases significantly. So C2 square by 2Cp is quite larger. So as a result, the 0.2 is much below 0.02. Okay, there is a significant kinetic energy, as can be seen from here. And then what happens in the stator? This kinetic energy decreases. So the stagnation enthalpy remains same, but because the kinetic energy decreases, the static enthalpy increases from 0.2 to 0.3. So T3 static temperature is much higher than T2. Okay, and the kinetic energy again decreases back to a very small value, which is equal to that at 0.1. Okay, so that is how we have or say a single stage of the thermodynamics of a single stage of axial compressor looks like. Okay. So based on this, we had written delta T is equal to T03 minus T01 overall increase in stagnation temperature, which is also equal to T02 minus T01. So this is equal to the work input divided by Cp. Okay. So stagnation enthalpy increase is equal to the work input. So the temperature increase is equal to work input by Cp. So this is equal to UCA tan beta 1 minus tan beta 2, like this value divided by Cp. And so keeping this diagram open. So if we assume that the overall compressor isentropic efficiency is given as T03s minus T01 by T03 minus T01, like we defined when we were doing cycle analysis. Okay, T03s minus T01 by T03 minus T01 is the overall isentropic efficiency. So based on that, we can write T03s minus T01 equal to eta C T03 minus T01. And this T03s by T01 can be calculated in terms of the pressure ratio P03 and P01. Okay. So if I take T01 common, we get T03s by T01, which is equal to P03 by P01 to the power gamma minus 1 by gamma. And after doing some algebraic calculation, so we can also replace T03 minus T01 with this value UCA tan beta 1 minus tan beta 2 by Cp. Okay. Then after some rearrangement, we get the pressure ratio P03 by P01 equal to 1 plus eta C UCA tan beta 1 minus tan beta 2 by Cp T01 whole to the power gamma by gamma minus 1. Okay. So in terms of the velocities and blade angles, we can write the pressure ratio. Okay. We can calculate what is the pressure ratio or increase in pressure based on the blade design. Okay, so this was our target. Then we had discussed some other things like work done factor. Okay, so I will not go into details. You can read about it. So how the actual work is slightly different from the ideal work. It is slightly lower because of the boundary layer effect. Okay, the velocity is not actually equal to CA at the along the end length of the blade, but actually changes towards the end and the starting part of the blade because of wall effect. As a result, you get a velocity profile like this, and the velocity profile deviates more and more the further along the axial flow compressor you go. So for the first stage, it is still more or less equal to CA, but for subsequent stages, it deviates more and more from CA. Okay. As a result, the first stage provides a larger fraction of the ideal pressure rise or ideal work input can be supplied to it, and this is given by say this work done factor, which is typically around 0.98 for the first stage and keeps on decreasing for second stage, third stage, and so on and so forth. So based on the number of stages, we can draw the work done factor variation like this. So up to this point, we had discussed in the previous class. Already half an hour is gone, but it was necessary to repeat this part. Anyway, so any questions on this? So then there is another important factor, or you can say important discussion, which is how much is the maximum diffusion that can be obtained in the rotor. So this diffusion in the rotor is given by the change in the relative velocity. Okay, because the relative mass flow rate also should remain constant. If you sorry, if you decrease the relative velocity, okay, by increasing the passage area between the rotor blades, what happens is that there will be a pressure rise. So the rotor blades will also act like a diffuser. Okay, so if you are sitting on the rotor blades, from the point of view of the rotor blades, you see that the passage area is increasing and the flow speed is decreasing. Basically, it is like acting like a diffuser, and because it is acting like a diffuser, the static pressure and static enthalpy, static temperature is increasing in the rotor blades. Okay, so the maximum, so if V2 is much smaller than V1, it means that more increasing static enthalpy and static pressure has occurred. So this extent of increase of static pressure or static enthalpy is given by how much decrease of the relative velocity has occurred in the rotor blades. Okay. So if you want to have larger diffusion, you want this V2 to be much smaller than V1. But if you have very large amount of diffusion in the rotor blades, okay, V2 is kept much smaller than V1. What will happen? Because you are going against the pressure gradient, so the flow is occurring against the flow is occurring in the direction of increase of pressure. The losses will increase dramatically if you try to have very large diffusion in the stator. Okay. So there is an empirical relation which gives us what should be the maximum diffusion. Okay, that is given by the minimum value of V2 with respect to V1. It is stated that V2 should be at least equal to 0.72 to like 72% of V1. It can be 73%, 75%. Okay, it should not go below 72% of V1. Okay, so this criteria, which is an empirical rule, is known as de Haller's criteria. Okay. And so basically it states that in a single stage, the maximum diffusion should be such that the relative velocity at the exit is at least 72% of the inlet relative velocity. Okay. So otherwise there will be very large pressure losses. So this is also known as the limit of diffusion in a rotor. So as a result, you cannot get very large increase in static enthalpy in the rotor, and this has consequence that we need larger number of stages. Okay. Axial flow compressor. So we will continue with other important aspects of axial compressor. So one of the other very important aspect of axial compressor is what is known as degree of reaction. Okay. So what is this degree of reaction? Degree of reaction is defined as the ratio of static enthalpy rise in the rotor by the overall static enthalpy rise. Okay. So overall static enthalpy rise in the entire stage, which is equal to the static enthalpy rise in the rotor plus the stator. So that is at the denominator, and in the numerator we have what is the static enthalpy rise in the rotor. So it gives us an estimate, or it gives us a, so this parameter, basically the physical significance is that it gives us what is the extent of say we are providing certain amount of work input to the entire stage. Okay, so how much of that work input manifests as increase in static enthalpy rise in the rotor, and how much of that occurs in the stator. Okay, so we get an idea about that from this degree of reaction. If this degree of reaction is equal to 0, it means that there is no increase in static enthalpy in the rotor. Okay, let us go back to this diagram. Okay, so here we have seen what is the static enthalpy rise in the rotor. It is equal to Cp into T2 minus T1, and the static enthalpy rise in the stator is Cp into T3 minus T2. Okay, so if degree of reaction is 0, it means that the rotor is not providing any increase in static enthalpy. So T2 should be equal to T1, and the entire static enthalpy rise should occur in the stator. So the entire burden of increase of static enthalpy lies with the stator. Okay, which is not an ideal situation because you need very large diffusion the stator. Okay. On the other hand, if we have degree of reaction equal to 1, it means that rotor has the entire burden of increase of static enthalpy. So T2 minus T1 will be equal to the entire work input, okay, which is equal to T02 minus T01, and T3 will be equal to T2. There will not be any change in static enthalpy in the stator, which is again not an ideal situation because we are putting the entire burden of increase of pressure and static temperature on the rotor, and the stator is not doing anything apart from changing the flow direction. Okay, so ideally we want to divide the work input so that work input is still provided in the rotor, but ideally we want to divide the increase in the pressure among both the rotor and stator so that both the rotor and the stator has moderate increase in static pressure. Okay, so that the overall losses are less. Okay, if one of them has very large increase in pressure, then the losses in that part. So if rotor has very large increase in pressure, the losses in the rotor will become very high. If the stator has very large increase in pressure, the losses in the stator will become very high. If we divide them more or less 50%, 50%, then the losses should be less. Okay, so in that case, the degree of reaction should be somewhere near 50% or 0.5, but it may not be exactly 0.5. It, depending on the design, it can vary. So that is what is the physical significance of degree of reaction. It gives us an indication, or it gives us a quantitative value of how much static enthalpy rise is occurring in the rotor and how much static enthalpy rise is occurring in the stator. Okay, and it is defined by the static enthalpy rise in the rotor by the overall static enthalpy rise. So from this diagram, we can see that R can be written as Cp into T2 minus T1 by Cp into T3 minus T1. Okay, and if we assume that Cp is constant, R can be written as T2 minus T1 by T3 minus T1. Okay, equal to the static temperature rise in the rotor by the overall static temperature rise. So if we assume that Ca is constant and C3 equal to C1, these are assumptions which we have already taken previously, okay, during calculation of the work. We can write, so basically what is T03? T03 is equal to T3 plus C3 square by 2 Cp. Okay. So if C3 equal to C1, we can write T03 is equal to T3 plus C1 square by 2 Cp. Okay. Similarly, T01 is equal to T1 plus C1 square by 2 Cp. So from that, we can write T3 minus T1 is equal to T03 minus T01 because the kinetic energy remains same, C1 square by 2. Okay, so as a result, the difference in static temperature is equal to the difference in stagnation temperature over the entire stage. So T3 minus T1 is equal to T03 minus T01. And so Cp into T03 minus T01 we have already calculated, or we have already written as equal to work input UCA tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1. Okay. So that we can write here as, CPT3 minus T1 is equal to CPT03 minus T01 is equal to UCA tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1. Okay. There's a reason why I am doing all this calculation. We want to relate this degree of reaction to the design of the blade. So basically to the velocities and the angles. Okay. In terms of the angles and velocities, we want to find out we want to write the degree of reaction. So now, if we assume that delta TA is equal to the static temperature rise in the rotor, so delta TA is equal to T2 minus T1, and delta TB to be equal to the static temperature rise in the stator. So delta TB is equal to T3 minus T2. So the overall temperature rise is delta TA plus delta TB. Okay. So we can write the overall work input. Overall work input is what? Overall work input is T03 minus T01. Okay, this minus this into Cp. Okay, which is also equal to Cp into T3 minus T1. Okay, or equal to Cp into delta Ta plus delta Tb. Okay, T3 minus T1 is equal to T3 minus T2 plus T2 minus T1. So Cp into delta Ta plus delta Tb. Now, so we can write W is equal to Cp delta Ta plus Cp delta Tb. So what is Cp into delta Tb? What is the temperature rise that is occurring in the, or what is the enthalpy rise, static enthalpy rise that is occurring in the stator? This is equal to the change in kinetic energy, because there is no work input in the stator. The static enthalpy rise occurs at the cost of kinetic energy. So Cp into T3 minus T2 is equal to C2 square by 2 minus C1 square by 2. Okay, C2 square by 2 minus C3 square by 2, and because C3 equal to C1, we can write this as C2 square by 2 minus C1 square by 2. Okay. So Cp into delta Tb we can write as half C2 square minus C1 square. Okay. So this work input now can be written as Cp delta Ta plus half C2 square minus C1 square. And C2 and C1 from the velocity triangle we can see that C2 is equal to C2 into cos alpha 2 is equal to Ca, or C2 is equal to Ca sec alpha 2. Similarly, C1 into cos alpha 1 equal to Ca. So C1 equal to Ca sec alpha 1. Okay. So we can replace that in this expression, and we can write this as, so half C2 square minus half C1 square can be written as half Ca square sec square alpha 2 minus sec square alpha 1. Okay. So now we can write this Cp into delta Ta as W minus half C2 square minus C1 square. Okay. So what is W? W we have already written as UCA tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1. Okay, this part. UCA tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1. Minus, so CPTA is equal to this UCA tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1 minus half C2 square minus C1 square. which we can write using this as half Ca square sec square alpha 2 minus sec square alpha 1. Now sec square alpha 2 is equal to 1 plus tan square alpha 2 and sec square alpha 1 is equal to 1 plus tan square alpha 1. So we can replace those expressions and we will find that Cp delta Ta is equal to UCA tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1 minus half Ca square tan square alpha 2 minus tan square alpha 1. Okay. So now we can write the degree of reaction R as delta Ta by, so this by the entire delta T, which is delta Ta plus delta Tb. Delta Ta by delta Ta plus delta Tb. And we have calculated delta Ta. Delta Ta is equal to UCA tan alpha 2. Cp into delta Ta is equal to UCA tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1 minus half Ca square tan square alpha 2 minus tan square alpha 1. Okay. And Cp into delta Ta plus delta Tb is equal to the work input, which is equal to UCA tan alpha 2 minus tan alpha 1. So if you simplify this, you get R is equal to 1 minus. So this basically cancels, and here we get, from the second part, we get Ca by 2U tan alpha 1 plus tan alpha 2. Okay. So this is the value of R in terms of the flow angles or the stator angles alpha 1 and alpha 2. And Ca and U. Why we are writing in terms of Ca and U? Because these are design parameters. Okay. So these are independent of the stages. We have assumed that Ca does not change from stage to stage, because we are keeping it deliberately constant by changing the cross-sectional area, and at the mean radius the U does not change. So based on these parameters, we can write or define R. Okay. Now we can also write R in terms of the stator blade angles or the blade angles, because we know that previously we had seen that U is equal to Ca tan alpha 1 plus tan beta 1 from the velocity triangle, and also U is equal to Ca tan alpha 2 plus tan beta 2. We can replace the value of tan alpha 1 or Ca tan alpha 1 in terms of U and Ca tan beta 1. Okay, in this expression. Similarly, Ca tan alpha 2 we can replace by in terms of U and tan beta 2, Ca tan beta 2. And if you do that after some cancellations, you will get R is equal to Ca by 2U tan beta 1 plus tan beta 2 in terms of the blade angles. And Ca by U we have defined as flow coefficient phi. So finally we can write R as phi by 2 tan beta 1 plus tan beta 2. So in terms of design parameters like flow coefficient and blade angles. Any questions here? We will see what is the implication of this expression, okay, for different cases of R. Any questions? Let us keep this open. Okay. So as I was saying, the limiting cases intuitively does not feel to be good. Means limiting cases are equal to 0. Means the entire burden of static enthalpy rise and static pressure rise lies with the stator for R equal to 0. Whereas for R equal to 1, the entire burden of static enthalpy rise and static pressure lies with the rotor. Okay. So in either of these cases, what will happen? One of the parts, so either the stator or the rotor, will have a very large increase in pressure. As a result, there will be very large losses in that part. Okay. So ideally, we want to divide the entire pressure rise equally or near about equally between the rotor and the stator. So if we exactly divide the static enthalpy rise equally in the stator and the rotor, by definition that is the case for R equal to half. Okay, R equal to half means that the rise of enthalpy in the static enthalpy in the rotor is equal to 50% of the rise of total static enthalpy in the stage. Okay, or rise of static enthalpy in the rotor is equal to rise of static enthalpy in the stator. Delta TA is equal to delta TB from this expression. This is the ideal scenario. Okay, so for this case, from this expression, we can see that if R is equal to half, okay, from this expression, half is equal to Ca by 2U tan beta 1 plus tan beta 2, or we can write U by Ca is equal to, from this expression, U by Ca is equal to tan beta 1 plus tan beta 2. And previously we had already seen that U by Ca is equal to tan alpha 1 plus tan beta 1. Okay. So from these two expressions, U by Ca is equal to tan beta 1 plus tan beta 2 and U by Ca is equal to tan beta 1 plus tan alpha 1, we get that alpha 1 equal to beta 2. Okay. Similarly, it can be easily shown that alpha 2 is equal to beta 1. Okay. So what has happened in this case? The velocity diagram is symmetrical about the central line. If I put the two velocity diagrams, let me also show the individual velocity diagrams like this to avoid confusion. Okay. So alpha 1, which is the exit angle, alpha 1 is the exit angle from the stator. Okay. Inlet angle to the rotor, absolute inlet angle to the rotor, or the exit angle to the stator is equal to the exit blade angle of the rotor. Okay, so this beta 2, this angle is equal to this alpha 1. Alpha 3 is equal to alpha 1. So basically beta 2 is equal to this angle. Okay, so the exit angles of both the rotor and stator are same. Similarly, alpha 2 equal to beta 1 means that inlet angle of the rotor, stator, is equal to the inlet angle of the rotor. So the angle of the at the inlet for both the rotor and stator are same. Okay. So rotor and stator basically have similar shapes, or are equal to half. Okay, and that is also understandable because from the point of view of the rotor, you see the relative velocity, and the change in relative velocity should be similar to what you get for the change in absolute velocity in the stator. Okay, so as a result, the angles in the rotor also should be similar to the angles in the stator, because you are getting exactly similar diffusion in both the rotor and the stator. So that is what we see mathematically here, that alpha 1 equal to beta 2 and alpha 2 equal to beta 1. Or if we put both the velocity triangles together, we get the velocity diagram symmetrical about the central line. Okay. And this also means that because the angles are symmetrical and Ca is constant, it means that C1 is equal to V2. So the absolute velocity at the exit of the stator is equal to the relative velocity at the exit of the rotor, and C2 equal to V1. So the absolute velocity at the inlet of the stator is equal to the relative velocity at the inlet of the rotor. Okay, so C1 equal to V2 and C2 equal to V1 in this case, which is again, it means the same, that the extent of diffusion is similar in both the rotor and the stator. So in the rotor, the diffusion occurs in terms of relative velocity. You have to think about it. Okay, in terms of relative change in kinetic energy. So the velocity decreases from V1 to V2, and same decrease in velocity, but in terms of absolute velocity occurs in the stator. It decreases from C2 to C1. Okay, so that also we are seeing mathematically. So this is the case for the ideal situation, R equal to half, and typically designs are made with, or at least we should try to keep R near about 50%. Okay. The other cases of R equal to 0 and R equal to 1 are just of theoretical importance. They are not used practically for gas turbines. If you have studied power plant engineering and steam turbines, you know that R equal to 0 is used in some cases, okay, which we call as impulse turbine. But those type of designs are not present in case of gas turbine. So for R equal to 0, again go back to the equation of degree of reaction. r equal to 0, if you put the value here, you get that tan beta 1 plus tan beta 2 equal to 0, or beta 1 is equal to minus beta 2. Tan beta 1 equal to minus tan beta 2, or beta 1 equal to minus beta 2. So the velocity diagram looks like this. Okay, beta. So this is minus beta 2 and this is beta 1. So basically, if you consider the individual velocity diagrams, individual velocity triangles, we are just running out of time to finish. This is the velocity triangle, one velocity triangle, and this is at the exit of the rotor, and this is at the inlet of the rotor. Okay. So the velocity triangles are very skewed. Okay. So we get very large increasing absolute velocity in the rotor and no change in relative velocity in the rotor. From the angles and from the diagram, you can see that V1 equal to V2. Okay. And that is also expected. We expect that there will be no change in relative velocity in the rotor because there is no diffusion in the rotor. Okay. The only diffusion occurs in the stator. As a result, in the stator, the velocity decreases from very large velocity C2 to very small velocity C1. Okay. And in the rotor, the absolute velocity increases to a very large value because the entire work input just gives rise to kinetic energy increase, absolute kinetic energy increase. Remember that kinetic energy is different at different reference points. Okay. So kinetic energy is not a absolute parameter. Sometimes students get confused. Okay. If you are, say, sitting in a car, relative to the car, your kinetic energy is 0. But outside, for a stationary observer, you have a very large kinetic energy. Okay. So the absolute kinetic energy increases in the rotor significantly, but there is no change in relative kinetic energy in the rotor. And another very important point is that not only for this, like from thermodynamics point of view, you can apply the laws of conservation, first law of thermodynamics, which basically gives us the work and energy balance in any of the reference frames. Like if I'm moving with a certain velocity, or if I am in a stationary frame, in both cases we can apply the first law of thermodynamics, and that is how we are saying that in the rotor the change in relative velocity gives us the pressure increase. Okay. Think about it. If you have some confusion, ask me in the next class because we have run out of time. So this is these are also known as impulse type, and all the static pressure rise occurs in the stator. Passage area remains same for the rotor blades, okay, because there is no diffusion. The passage area at the inlet and outlet remains same, and this is not practical for the reasons that we have already discussed. Similarly, for r equal to 1, you will be able to find that alpha 1 equal to minus alpha 2. So, and you will see that C1 equal to C2. Again, that is not practical because very large change in kinetic energy occurs in the rotor. So you will find that V1 is much larger than V2. Okay, and that's why it's not like practical. So ultimately, we can state that R is equal to half is the most attractive design because of most efficient diffusion, because you are dividing the diffusion appropriately between both the rotors and stators. We will continue this discussion in the next class. We will finish. We have 2 classes left. One is the missed class on, like, the class that I missed yesterday. I was not feeling well, and one is the class on next Thursday, and that should be sufficient. So when can I take the missed class? What should be? Why I am not getting the attendance list? Can I take